All right, and let's get episode 21 started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Compass Coffee Talk. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in the door. We're very excited to host our friend and colleague, Max Goldberg, this month, the month of February, shortest month of the year. Spring's getting closer, right, Bill?
Yes, the days are longer. Walked my dog at 5:20 last night.
Welcome, my co-host, Bill Capsalis, Executive Director of Naturally Boulder, which is also one of our distinguished sponsors of Compass Coffee Talk. We welcome all of you. Thank you very much for supporting this podcast, again, now in its 21st episode. And I'm really thrilled to have, again, my friend and colleague, Max Goldberg, join us. I'm actually a fan. I'm a follower, a reader. Max is the publisher and editor of Organic Insider. It's a subscription-based executive level newsletter covering the business of organic products, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And because this is one interesting place where there actually is an audit trail of our food from seed to shelf. So the organic standard and the seal is actually quite unique in all of the food industry, and we should be proud of that. And Max is out there as a journalist, really holding the industry to its intent and to its standards, kind of to upholding the organic constitution, so to speak. He was called an organic sensation by the New York Times, and while we may chuckle about that because we're just friends, but getting named that by the New York Times is actually quite an honor. And one of the nation's leading organic food experts by Shape magazine. If you haven't, again, seen Organic Insider, go there, subscribe today at organicinsider.com. He also has a book coming out in the near future called Unprepared, Breaking Free from a Decade of Antidepressants. So the journey toward organic for many of us is not only a business journey, but a personal journey, and we'll get more into that. But first, I want to take a moment. Compass Coffee Talk is made possible by you, our listeners and viewers, and also by our sponsors, which is Presence Marketing, one of the largest independent brokerages in the natural product sales channel. Naturally Boulder, a great network of businesses in the San Diego area. Naturally Boulder, which kind of started the hub network system. There's now Naturally New York, Naturally Chicago, Naturally Austin, Naturally Boulder, Naturally Bay Area, Naturally San Diego. If you are in the business of natural products, you want to join one of those organizations in your region. Bill, did I miss any?
North Bay, Naturally North Bay.
Naturally North Bay. I'm trying to watch them all. So then also the Independent Natural Food Retail Association is a sponsor. Thank you very much, Pat Sheridan, the Executive Director, CEO there, and the whole team. And that is the largest network of independent retailers in the natural products industry. So check out INFRA, the Independent Natural Food Retail Association, and also a Genius Food, which is a gut-loving probiotic bread that you can find at Sprouts Markets and other leading natural food stores throughout the US. They're based in the UK, but they're taking over the US. It's the Genius Foods invasion. Make sure you check out Genius Foods bread. Thanks very much. Bill, why don't you lead us into our interview, if you would?
Okay, let's take a deep breath. It's all about organic today, but first, Max, welcome to the show. And just how's it been for you the last couple of years? Pandemic, we're moving into year 3. Like, how have you been personally? How have you been, surviving, thriving? How's it been the last couple of years for you?
Well, Steve and Bill, thanks so much for having me. It's great to have this conversation with you. So the pandemic has been up and down, and much more up as of late. I'm very excited for Expo West in a few weeks. I did go to Expo East last September in Philadelphia, and that was great to be there. That was a very different show.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't think, Steve, you were there. I saw you there, Steve. So you
There.
were there. So that was a great show in that it wasn't that crowded
Yep.
and it was a very spacious trade show floor.
It was
So
like the
everything was
Rolling
on one floor.
Stones playing in a tiny little bar, all bare bones.
Yeah.
So it was good. I mean, I'm very excited to go to Anaheim in a few weeks. And so I have, you know, the pandemic was hard for everyone, but I've got nothing to complain about. Everything's going well.
That's great. That's really good to hear. You know, kind of a journey you've been on, and the industry has just changed so radically in the past 20 years. What's sort of like, how did you find yourself into this role and being recognized in this industry like you have been? How did you get there? What happened? How did your journey take you to where you are today? Not your whole history, but just those early stages of like you thinking, I've got to dedicate my life to this, or, you know, make a business out of it.
Well, in 2001 was when I found organic. I went to go visit my girlfriend at the time to see her naturopath. And I just started asking questions. I said, don't we need chemicals to kill all the bugs? And she said, no, we don't. And then I went home and I did research. And ever since then, I've been eating close to 100% organic since 2001. A few years later, I met a guy who wanted to back me to open up a chain of coffee shops, but all organic. So it'd be basically a Starbucks, but all organic. And I actually went to work at Starbucks for a few months, figuring I would do this. So I went to work at Starbucks, and after a few months, I said, I don't want to be in the coffee business. I didn't even drink coffee. I really wanted to do something in organic. Had no idea that Expo West or any of these trade shows existed. So I figured, you know, the dream of doing something in organic was done. I'm just going to be an organic consumer for the rest of my life. And several years later, blogging started to become more popular. And then I launched a blog at the end of 2009, beginning of 2010. And I was living in Boston at the time. And someone said, you know, there's a trade show going on this week, Natural Products Expo East, was taking place in Boston. So I called up Heather Smith, who you may know Heather, and Heather ran the press room at Expo East for many years, both expos for many years. I called her up. I told her who I was. I said, I don't have a business card. I don't have a website. I have nothing, but can I come? And she said, sure, come and call my cell phone and I'll get you in. And that was, really the start of the journey. And I just started showing up everywhere. I was living in New York City. I moved to New York City in 2010, and I just went to every single event, anything. I went to every trade show and just sort of made myself known. And, you know, I think in the beginning, people are like, who is this guy? And then they just start seeing me over and over and over again. And then I remember the first Expo West trade show. I went to the, I think it was the OTA dinner, and I literally did not know a soul. I was there like, you know, I knew who some people were, but they didn't know me. And then, you know, just things, you know, grew from there, and I got some good press. And I was, you know, I'm very much of an activist journalist. And so I was very heavily involved in the GMO labeling movement. I put on with my friend Vani Hari, Food Babe. We put on a bunch of GMO labeling food fundraisers, and so got and participated in marches and really sort of became you know, an activist in the movement. So that's really how it started and how it evolved.
Beautiful. You know,
Yeah, I think that's where we met as well, Max, where you and Vonnie were getting very involved in GMO labeling. I was working as well for the California GMO labeling initiative, Washington State, Colorado. So I remember those collaborative times. Interestingly enough, now we have this new bioengineered label that, you know, is kind of like, to me, quite deceptive for the consumer. That's where we've ended up with all of that. But still, from there, you also started hosting some industry meetups where, you know, again, I think you just really built a reputation as bringing the industry together and reporting on it. So,
Max, do you think of yourself as I mean, you're obviously very curious and that drives you, but do you think of yourself as a sort of a investigative type journalist, or a an observer that documents things? I mean, it sounds like you're a bit of a organizer as well. So where do you kind of land in terms of that, how you describe yourself professionally right now, I guess?
Mark Castell, from formerly of Cornucopia and now of Organic Guy, he kind of refers to me as an activist journalist, and that's kind of stuck. So I would say that. And when I originally started my organic food blog, Living Maxwell, I had that going, and then several years later, and I run the organic food industry group on LinkedIn, as Steve mentioned, and I hosted these meetups at Expo West, and then things changed with LinkedIn, and then I basically, that group still exists, but I took essentially what I was doing there and expanded it and onto my own platform called Organic Insider. And that newsletter has been going on for about 5.5 years. So it's a mix of, activism and journalism, and there's investigative journalism. It's just me. So there's only so much that I can do. And what I wanted to do with this newsletter is, what I was realizing was that so many of these companies, the CEOs were so busy running their businesses and executives that they didn't really have the time or didn't really know exactly what was going on in the industry from a political, legislative standpoint. So I said, if I can create a newsletter, and it was every week and it's now every other week, if I can create a newsletter and they actually read it and spend 5 to 10 minutes a week reading it, they'll have a really good idea of what was going on. And so what I really wanted to do is inform the community about what is taking place in organic, because I know that from the business perspective, the people running these companies are very busy. These are incredibly competitive. It's an incredibly competitive industry. So these are very busy people, but they do want to know what's going on. So that was really what I wanted to do, is to, keep them informed about all the developments, particularly on the regulatory and legislative perspective, because it's so important what is taking place at the USDA, at the National Organic Standards Board. And people really need to be involved. If there's one thing that people can leave with today, is buying organic at your grocery store, at the farmer's market, it's just not enough. If you think I'm going to take my dollars and contribute to organic, and that's going to save the system, that's wrong. I had a discussion with a banker recently who said, yeah, but we're, as organic grows and there's more money goes into it, the regulatory and the policy will just follow along. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. Organic has never been bigger. Organic has never been more popular with consumers, and organic has never been under such attack as it is right now. So the size of the sector is not moving in parallel with enforcement and the regulatory status.
Interesting. And I did want to ask you about, that, call to action, because it does seem like it's under attack again, and it seems like it comes under attack on a regular basis. What are the most right now, if there were like 2 things you could say to people that they could do to turn that sort of fear or anxiety into action, what are the 2 things they could do right now, Max? What's your suggestion?
Well, let's just talk about, we'll get to the suggestions. Let's talk about 2 of the main, there are a lot of issues in organic, but 2 of the main issues that I want to talk about are, number 1 is hydroponics. Okay. And number 2 is organic dairy factory farms. Number 1, hydroponics, growing vegetables, fruits, vegetables in buckets of water. This is a complete violation of Section 6513 of the Organic Foods Production Act of 1990. This was ratified by Congress. It says farmers must have a management plan that fosters soil fertility. There is nothing about growing tomatoes in a plastic bucket of water that is fostering soil fertility. It is a complete violation of the organic standards. And
sounds actually pretty input intensive and not regenerative.
And not at all. Not at all.
I mean, can you give me an example of a product that is grown that way that we might assume, like, is tomatoes one of those that are grown hydroponically that we might
tomatoes, berries, you name it. Tomatoes, berries, greens. This is where it's going. It's been told to me from people who grow tomatoes in the dirt that roughly about 70% of the nation's organic tomatoes, or the organic tomatoes that are sold nationally, are grown hydroponically. So why is this a problem? Number one, it violates the Organic Foods Production Act, so it's illegal.
And
That's
it puts
number one.
soil growers at a disadvantage.
Exactly.
If they're controlling the market share.
Exactly. How are you as an organic farmer growing in the dirt 3 years to transition? How are you supposed to compete? It's very, very difficult to compete, because when they go to the retailers don't say, okay, you're selling soil grown organic tomatoes and the other person is growing hydroponic organic tomatoes. We're going to pay this for a hydroponic. We're going to pay this for, no, that's one price. So it makes it incredibly difficult to compete. These people are going out of business and consumers are losing. Not only are they being sold a false bill of goods, but consumers are losing choice, because it's going to be very difficult, next to impossible, to find tomatoes or other berries that are grown in the soil.
I also have to ask, actually, because I'm from Jersey. I mean, tomatoes, right? Terroir of vegetables and fruits from the soil, from farmers rebuilding, regenerating their soils. Are we losing flavor, taste? Are we losing nutritional profile with hydroponic? Because it's a soup slurry of what people think the right nutrients are versus what Mother Nature knows the right nutrients are.
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. And I think the hydroponic people will say, listen, we've tested all the macronutrients and it's all similar. I mean, I just don't believe it. I don't believe that you can replicate the intelligence of the soil in a bucket of water. I just don't believe it. And so I don't believe it at all.
Max, that number one issue. What's number two?
Number two is the allowance of organic dairy factory farms.
Okay.
And so this was written in the Washington Post, had a huge expose about Aurora. So these are farms that are with thousands and thousands of cows. They're not, getting adequate access to pasture. And so what it's doing is the price of organic milk is being pushed down to artificially low levels, making it impossible for the small family farmers, organic dairy farmers, to compete. And what's happened lately has been a very high profile story that I've been writing about, is Danone, which is Horizon, and Maple Hill have just cut the contracts of 135 small organic dairy farms in the Northeast. And Danone North America, the largest B Corp in the world, and who's supposed to be doing things for the better of communities, cut these contracts. If these farmers don't get new contracts, they'll go out of business. So that is what's happening, is because the USDA is turning a blind eye to these organic dairy factory farms, these small organic dairy farmers are going out of business. Again,
all right, now wait a minute though. Cows are supposed to have access to pasture under organic law. So how are these companies getting these cows access to pasture, or is it like they're the bare minimum?
Don't know why. The industry experts say it would be logistically impossible to have 10,000 cows on one farm and to get them out and get the minimum 30% pasture rule to meet that. They said it will be logistically impossible. So that's what no one knows. How is this possible? No one knows.
And in the West, where there's a lot of drought, just ecologically, it's, I think, more difficult on the pasture front. Whereas in the Northeast, with all these small family farms, I mean, they're made for pasture.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So it's logistically, a lot of experts say it's just not possible. It's just not possible. It's not like you can take 10,000 cows and say, okay, just go right outside the barn. No, you can't do that. They need a lot more.
What can consumers and industry do to advocate?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, do I go after small family farm dairy, or what do I do with my berry and tomato consumption? How do I, as a advocate and consumer of organic products, how do I help from a purchasing perspective?
Great question, Bill. So there's several things. Number one, you want to go to your retailer and say, are these berries, tomatoes, greens, are they grown in the soil? And sort of demand an answer. A lot of the people working there, they might have good intentions, they might not know. Go
Right.
to your retailer and say, we want soil grown berries, everything. Number two, there's an organization that was started by principally organic farmers in the Northeast, but it's a national organization called the Real Organic Project. So essentially what they do is they certify farms across the country. I think they're about 500, are going to end the year at about 1,000. So you have to have USDA organic certification as the baseline. And then on top of that, they are not allowing hydroponics or factory farms. So if you get tomatoes that are Real Organic Project certified, you'll know that those are grown in the soil. So those are a few things, but you really want to go to your retailers and say, ask questions. Are these grown in the soil? And if someone says, well, I'm not sure, but I think so, that's not good enough. You got to find them. You have to find an answer, go to that brand's website and contact the brand, and also ask your retailer to carry Real Organic Project produce.
Okay.
Or organic produce that's grown in the soil. The last thing that you can do is, and everyone needs to do, I do it, contact your senators in Washington, D.C. and your representatives. So that's 3 people. Tell them that we've got to ban hydroponics and organic. And number 2, that we have to make sure the USDA is not allowing these organic factory farms.
Okay.
Max, is regenerative agriculture a direction the organic industry can look to viably? I mean, I think it's essential for the health of the planet, but economically?
Absolutely. And there's another add-on label that's very important called the Regenerative Organic Certified. I don't know if you've had them on the show,
No.
Steve and Bill, but they're doing that was started by Rodale, Patagonia, and Dr. Bronner's, and they're essentially elevating what organic is meant to represent. Also that they have, hydroponics, no factory farms, those are prohibited, but they're really raising the bar to the highest level for organic, soil health, worker welfare, things like that also. So yes, regenerative organic is a very important piece of organic moving forward. And one of the big controversies, in organic that people are very concerned about is some people say regenerative is co-opting organic. So if a brand is using regenerative on the box, some people think, oh, it's regenerative, that's good enough. And so regenerative does not have third-party standards. I'm not talking about regenerative organic certified. I'm just talking about just regenerative. There are no third-party standards or enforcement like organic. So if you're buying a regenerative product, make sure that it's USDA certified organic as well. And if you can get ROC, that's great also.
Max, I want to make sure we're mindful of our time here. And there's a couple things I want to make sure that you get a chance to talk about. One, this is the kind of information you put in your newsletter. And how do people subscribe to that? What does it cost? And 2, can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on now and your book that's coming out?
Wonderful. Well, thank you for asking that. Organicinsider.com. It's completely free. It used to be paid only. I changed the model because I felt like organic was under facing such challenges that anyone who wanted this information, anyone who wanted to share this on social media should get it and should be able to do it. And what I offer is a freemium plan. So for people who want to support the work, they can pay and get extras on top of the free newsletter that comes out every week. So it is a free newsletter right now. No advertising. You'll never see an advertisement in Organic Insider. So it's 100% supported by individuals and companies that want to support independent organic food journalism. So awesome. That's the newsletter. And the big thing I have going on this year is a book that will be coming out. It's a memoir. I was on antidepressants for almost 11 years. I went off in the summer of 2001. Took me 3.5 years to recover. I was suicidal. So the book is about before, during, and after my journey with antidepressants. It's not a book. It's not a how-to. It's not a book telling and exposing the pharmaceutical industry. It's none of that. It's merely about my journey, and it talks about how organic food played a huge role in my decision to go off of antidepressants in 2001, because here I was living in New York City, running around trying to get food that didn't have chemicals, yet I was popping a chemical in my mouth each morning. So, and I also knew in 2001, I said, I just do not envision ever, ever, ever giving up organic food and going to eat GMOs and pesticide laden food. I just said, I just don't envision that.
Right on. The book should come out in 22, do you think?
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. And how will people find out about that? Will you promote that separately through your website or your newsletter?
Yeah, if they go to, or if they sign up for Organic Insider, that they'll be hearing about it there, or my organic food blog, livingmaxwell.com, or if they join the organic food industry group on LinkedIn, which I run, they'll there, or on Instagram at Living Maxwell, and any of those places.
Yeah, we're gonna help. We're gonna help too, Bill. Get that word out for Max's book.
Absolutely.
You know, given what you're saying, that there was a point in time where you were looking at your life, I'm just going to tell you personally, it's a gift to know you now. So 12 years later, you've actually entered an entire new chapter, and look what you're doing for the organic industry. So I sure am glad you found that next chapter, Max.
Well, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate those words.
I'm getting all misty-eyed talking about it. Read the book when it comes out. Hey, there's a question from Dr. Felicia Dawson. She's a medical doctor I met down in Atlanta. An amazing person who actually is an expert in the endocannabinoid system. We thought we knew all the systems in the human body. We didn't discover that one until the mid-90s. She wants to know if anyone knows what organic farmers are doing to decrease the introduction of heavy metals in the soil. Is there any soil remediation activities? You know, they talk about that a lot with hemp and cannabis because it has deep roots. It can actually pull up some heavy metals. But are you studying into that issue at all?
Absolutely, and it's going to be, I think, a big issue this year. And so the answer is, what are farmers doing about it? I think farmers are waking up to the fact that this is a problem, and the most high-profile case of this was in Maine a few weeks ago, where a small organic farm discovered PFASs in their soil. And so, what is being done about it? I'm not sure anything's being done about it. I think this is going to be a very big story, and I guess I'm referring to that specific chemical. But if you talk about glyphosate, you know what brands are doing. There are third-party certifications. Glyphosate residue-free certification is one. I'm personally involved with that. I'm an advisor to them, and so brands are getting third-party certification for some of these testing. There's a brand called Zego Foods, one of my favorite brands, ZEGO, and Colleen, the founder, does more.
I have some of their oatmeal, right?
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're doing what you're saying, like glyphosate certified free on top of organic, or where are you going?
No, they are doing more testing. They test for more than 400 chemicals.
Wow.
Because oats are notorious for containing glyphosate residue. Absolutely. So good on her. Makes me want to eat some of her oatmeal today.
Yeah, Colleen's she is more transparent, does more testing than anyone. So I think brands are starting to test for glyphosate, whether they're getting a third-party certification or not. But this is something that really consumers need to drive the boat on. Consumers need to contact the brands and say, you know, can you please post your glyphosate testing results? Can you please test your results of heavy metals? I want to see it on your website. Consumers have to demand that. It's not good enough to say, yes, we've tested. Say, I want to see it.
I want to see it.
I want to see the results on your website.
Interesting.
Hey, you know, we're coming up on the half hour, guys. This is a fascinating discussion. And Bill, we got a lot of comments. Do you want to kind of get into any of those while we still have a few moments? And Max, if you're willing to go over a moment or two, and our audience as well.
I think there's a lot of positive read coming your way, Max, in the comments and the chat. So I just want to make sure you know that, and some big fans out there. I think this is an interesting question from Megan. We're working with a few farmers directly and nonprofits, finding it extremely difficult to enter the regenerative organic certification pathway. Any tips for us to help out our farmers? And Megan's an MD. with Trace Fem Care. So I think the question is good in that it's like, okay, I'm out here working with farmers. How do I help guide them towards, this certification process?
And hang on one sec. What Trace Femcare is doing, I actually met them recently at the Southern Hemp Expo. They're combining organic cotton and organic hemp for women's hygiene products of the highest quality. So they're looking at these types of products totally in a regenerative perspective.
Great. Any thoughts on that, Max?
Yeah, I've definitely got some thoughts. Number one is farms should get, the ROC is challenging.
Okay.
And it's a high level on purpose because they wanted to create a very high bar, raise the standard for what organic can be. Not all farmers can get there. So all organic farmers should try to get the Real Organic Project certification as an interim step. And if they want to get ROC certified, now there's no fee to get Real Organic. The certification is free. They made it free. Huh. So the person who left the comment, they should contact the Real Organic Project and get these farms certified under the Real Organic Project as an interim step. And then
that's a free certification, you said, Max. Is that correct?
It's a free certification
with a high bar. Like it's
and
not.
I put the website in the chat links. So take a look at some of the websites. Every time Max mentions a resource, I've been posting it, folks.
Got it.
It's an amazing organization, and it's got an advisory board, the standards board of an absolute who's who in the organic industry. These are people who wrote who helped write the laws. I think they got like a few dozen former NOSB members that are involved, something to that effect. So these farms should get Real Organic Project certified, and then what I would do is contact ROC and say we're not there yet. How can we get there? Or contact Rodale, because I know Rodale's got a new advisory program that's working with farmers. And so to help get ROP certified and start going down the path of ROC or certification. Maybe you can't get there just yet, or start to incorporate these practices, and Rodale can certainly advise people.
And we've actually got someone who just joined the Rodale Institute. Bridget Gilmore is listening in today.
Yeah. Great. I love the fact that is free, but I also love the fact that it's a high bar, right? So they're not just giving it away. You've got to actually be delivering the goods. Steve, I'm kind of like at the end of there's not much more in the chat other than a lot of positivity for Max. And I just have to echo that. It's been great talking with you. Do you have any final thoughts, Steve? And we'll give Max the final word, and then we'll close out.
I just want to say I'm very grateful for the comments from our viewers today. It really validates what we're doing here with Compass Coffee Talk. And Max, this just reminds me of every time we get together, it's kind of, we just chat away. And I think they're about some very important issues that we all can support as business people, as industry members, as consumers, and as citizens. Because what you brought up, which is really important, is all the policy and regulatory and issues with USDA. And I know to try to open up the possibility of organic hemp in the marketplace, because I do think it has a role in rotation and remediation. We need to get the FDA to loosen up some on that. So industry members do need to stay abreast of all this policy stuff and what they can support, but it's a lot. So what you're doing to kind of keep everybody apprised, I think, is really important. In closing, Max, I'm looking forward to seeing you in a month at the Natural and Organic Industry Channel's largest conference and trade show in the world, Natural Products Expo West. If you haven't been there, go to expowest.com. And I'm really happy to see so many people joining us today. Max, you got any closing comments on what you see near term for us coming out of the pandemic for the organic industry? Frankly, I think the value of organic has been heightened as a result of the pandemic, because it is about how you maintain your health, which is a message we've been talking about for 100 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think organic saw huge growth during the pandemic. And one of the challenges that we face as an industry is that I'm speaking like from a brand perspective, organic has been such a success story and people are only going to move to organic that I think a lot of people are involved do not say, okay, well, we're doing great in organic, it's growing. And I think if one parting comment would be, is that we really cannot forget about what is taking place with enforcement and things on the regulatory standpoint, because they are not moving in lockstep with the growth of the industry. It's getting worse, not better. And because brands see, oh, our top line is growing, we're doing great, there's nothing to worry about. That's not the case at all. It's moving in an opposite direction. And I just, just hope people really get involved, contact their senators, tell their, retailers, we want produce that's grown in the soil, and to just get really involved. And just one final thing, I wrote a story last week about dicamba, and I urge everyone to go read that. It's on organicinsider.com. This is a chemical that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has said is tearing apart the social fabric of many farming communities in the country. And senators are not doing anything about it, nothing. And that will give you some insight into why we need to really press Congress to take action. So Stephen and Bill, I know we got to wrap up. I appreciate your friendship. Thank you for having me on. This has been wonderful, and really to share the message of organic. And I'm very grateful for you guys to have this platform, to have people like myself to be able to, share these messages with the community. And looking forward to seeing you both in Anaheim.
Yeah, we'll see you there. And subscribe. Yeah. Everybody subscribe.
Subscribe to organicinsider.com. Yep. Stay on the lookout for Max's book. Max, we'll see you in a month. And this has been a great conversation. So thank you very much. And next month, we're actually looking forward to it, on March 16. We're involved, as you guys have probably heard a few times, in the hemp industry, and we'll be helping produce the NOCO Hemp Expo, March 23rd through 25th. So we're doing a show a week before then that's going to feature the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Colorado, Kate Greenberg, along with Saba Tesfaye, who's an expert in hemp building, and my friend and colleague, Morris Beagle, who's the producer of NOCO Hemp Expo. You can find out about that at nocohempexpo.com. It's in Denver again. And then we're really thrilled, on April 20th, Earth Week, we're going to be hosting Maria Rodale, one of the legacy former chair of Rodale Press. And that's how I got into the organic industry, was inspired by Rodale's Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening more years ago than I want to admit.
And Steve, if I can interject, if people have not been to Rodale Institute, I know it's obviously challenging with the pandemic, but when things really open up, everyone should do what they can to make the pilgrimage to Rodale. It's the birthplace of organic in the U.S., and it's a very, very special place.
Agree.
It's interesting you would say pilgrimage, because that was on the tip of my tongue. It is pilgrimage worthy, and I've been there, and I got the royal tour, so I'm thrilled. And again, thank you very much for your embracing of Compass Coffee Talk, and Bill Capsalis, my co-host. Thank you always. All right, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.